Good evening, and normally this is the time of day where I'm watching hockey and maybe doing hockey reviews and stuff, but I had time, so this is what I do. I make lists. I had a recent exchange with my ex. My ex was talking about how I used to make lists all the time. She didn't understand it. Now that I have the channels, she kind of gets it. So a list, and I came up with a challenge. I did not look through my DVD catalog, Blu-ray, DVD, nothing. This is all off the top of my head. Okay, so if we were going to create a month of Quarantine-oween, which is what Yvonne and I are calling it, with the anticipation we probably won't have your traditional trick-or-treating in the neighborhood and all that stuff, and we're going to come up with stuff for the kids to do. But for those of us who, we might miss out on all the Halloween stuff, and of course AMC has Halloween movies all month, but I wanted to do like the ultimate setup of Halloween movies. And a month of basically horror movies for the month, but I had to consider this from two different angles. Not all people like really gory horror movies. Although I allowed that if they're really gory and they've got some humor to them, I didn't really worry about replacing them at all. So, day 1 through day 31, because that's how the month of October works. There's 31 days in it, and then we only have 2 more months left in 2020, thankfully. And hopefully 2021, this isn't a problem. So day 1, Night of the Living Dead. I don't care if it's the 1960s one or the one from 1990. I will say this. The one from 1990 still creeps me out. It's just, it's that nice mix of pretty good special effects and feeling just realistic enough that you're uncomfortable. Just realistic enough that you're uncomfortable watching it. And it is one of the best remakes I've seen. So if you watch the one from the 60s, which also has those moments, and of course it was when George Romero gave birth to what is now modern day zombie movies, it is fantastic, atmospheric. It doesn't matter that it's black and white. It's very creepy. And it's got its moments where you feel very unnerved as well. But the 1991, to this day, it creeps me out. And it's almost shot for shot a remake. It does end different, though, so that's good. In that if you've watched the original, you're like, well, I know how this ends. No, you don't. You don't have any idea. So day 2. Friday the 13th. Now, I do mean the original, because there are other Friday the 13th movies on here, and if you watch the one with Sam from Supernatural, I know his name's Jared Padalecki, but when you see him on a movie, you go, that's Sam, right? Like, sort of like, oh, Jensen Ackles. No, that's Dean. And no matter what movie he's in, it's Dean. And it's Sam. But I'm talking about the 1981, because otherwise, the other ones that go beneath this, I mean, you can still watch them and get what's going on. Nobody's ever put on... Horror movies are kind of like adult films that way. Nobody ever puts them on and goes, I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand what's the reason why this killer's doing these things. Can we get some kind of a reason? You don't need a reason. Friday the 13th is just... Actually, there is a good reason for Friday the 13th in the original one. But if you watch the reboot, that reason is in the first 2 minutes of the movie, and then they skip right into Jason. So, yeah. Day 3, going with... So I'm not sure how many zombie movies I ended up with. I kind of became aware that I needed to split them up as I was putting these together. So I'm going with Shaun of the Dead. So if you watch Night of the Living Dead, you watch Friday the 13th, there's not a lot of humor in these movies. Unintentional humor in Friday the 13th, sure. But Shaun of the Dead, nice, humorous, nice for a break. Zombie movie, definitely impacted by Return of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead from 1978, which... I mean, you could put Dawn of the Dead from 1978 here, I guess, but then you're watching 2 Romero movies within 2 days of each other. People might love that. For me, I wanted to spread them out a little bit. Day 4. Day 4 is Nightmare on Elm Street, and it is not the reboot. Do not watch the reboot. I would recommend staring directly into the sun over watching the reboot. The reboot is awful. Nightmare on Elm Street always rode this line between Freddy being horrible, obviously, but humorous. And The remake took all that humor and just said, take that out. They took him over the top from being horrible and made him downright really creepy and gross. And I it's weird to say it like that because he's always been a gross human being, that he was a child murderer, but they somehow made it worse in the remake. It's insane because Jackie Earle Haley, I love his work in the Watchmen movie, which I know was panned, but I really enjoyed it. But yeah, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and when I heard it was going to be him that was in it, and Katie Cassidy was going to be in it, I'm like, oh man, the casting in this is great. And then I watched the movie, and I'm like, what is this crap? So watch the original with Nancy, Heather Langenkamp, Scream Queen. Number 5, day 5. I'm used to doing countdowns, so say number a lot, but it's day 5. Day 5. Again, I'm lightening it up a bit, and back with another zombie movie. It's a lot of zombie movies. Zombieland. And again, Zombieland, inspired by all the Romero stuff. You don't get Zombieland without Romero movies. And Zombieland was one that I initially forgot when I was making up this list. And I thought, no, we got to get Zombieland in there. And if you want to do a double feature and watch the first one and the second one, I recommend that. The second one is very good. In fact, if you want to do any kind of back-to-backs, you can watch Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2 back-to-back. If you watch Friday the 13th Part 2, don't try to figure out how Jason tracked down the killer from Part 1. Because it doesn't make any sense, and why he'd go to somebody's apartment and kill them and then leave, and I assume close the door behind himself. I assume clean up after himself, because you never see like any kind of a police scene with this girl that gets killed. So I've always assumed Jason's just, furiously cleaning up after himself. I have so many ideas for the Friday the 13th movie that will work fantastic. I want to fill in all the gaps on how much Jason enjoys his work and how he's actually a neat freak. Because clearly, he cleans up after himself a lot. If you don't believe me, watch these movies and see how many times something horrible happens, a character comes into that room 5 minutes later, and it is clean. There isn't a drop anywhere. And it's like, wow, Jason really cleaned up. He's got to have like a Mr. Clean pack in his back pocket. Probably some stuff back here. Like he's always got like a big baggy clothes. That's why. He's got all the cleaning equipment on him. Be a great movie. Day 6. Okay, so day 6, I'm giving you an option. I'm giving you an option here. Evil Dead from 1981. Or, if you are of the mind that that's too intense, and it is too intense for some, I'll let you off the hook and recommend Sleepy Hollow. So, if the Evil Dead, the original's too intense, I would understand that. I know when I was a kid, it terrified me. I couldn't sleep that first night after I watched it the first time. Sleepy Hollow, very good movie with Johnny Depp. Christina Ricci looked fantastic in that movie. I don't know what it is with that movie, but Christina Ricci looks absolutely amazing in that movie. And it was like everything just peaked there for, I think, both Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci. And it's a great movie. It's underrated. On day 7. Day 7, we're going back to This Is Not. And I've corrected people on this many times. 28 Days Later is not a zombie movie because they're not dead. They're rage monsters. It's a virus passing, the same as with zombies, that it's a virus that's causing it. But 28 Days Later, they're rage monsters. So they're not technically dead. But if you are like, I don't feel like watching that, I've had enough of all these zombie movies, then I'll give you a zombie movie with a twist. So if you don't feel like watching 28 Days Later, might I suggest, if you can find it, Night of the Creeps. Night of the Creeps is a movie I watched with friends of mine when we were in high school. And we watched it. It was one of those ones that we finished it and we're like, let's watch it again. And it's the idea that there's these slugs from outer space that live in your head. They turn you into a zombie to infect other people, get slugs in their head, and then you blow up their heads. It's kind of grim, but it's really funny. It's really campy. And it's actually really funny when a girl's breaking up with a guy who is clearly a zombie and doesn't care, just wants to, pass on the infection. Day 8, I'm going to go with Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods is a movie that once you've watched it once or twice, and you've got the the twist. It doesn't have the same impact, obviously, but it is still rewatchable. I watched it with my wife about, I think it was 6 months ago, and honestly, it was you know, it was one of those ones that I had watched a little bit too much, and I needed a break, and I went back, and it's entertaining. I saw that one. I'm pretty sure I saw that one in the theater, and when it first came out, and it's a really good movie. It's really funny, and it's gory. These are gory movies. Almost everything I'm putting up here in this column is going to be R-rated, so I'm just throwing that out there. They're pretty grim, but I've always been a guy who likes horror movies. So, there you go. Day 9. We're going back to Elm Street. So, which sequel did I pick? Now, people who know me through this channel would know. Well, Shannon would pick Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and they'd be right. Now, again, if you want to do a double feature, I recommend watching Part 4 that night as well, because I don't have Part 4 in the rest of this. In fact, for Elm Street's, Part 4 is the only other one that I find watchable. Part 5 is Freddy trying to be born as a baby. Part 6 is unwatchable. And then we go to Freddy vs. Jason, which is on the list. But that's the end of the Elm Street movies right there. And as I said, the remake, just don't. You get that. You look at it and you go, that's the Elm Street remake Shannon talked to me about. And when you go to click play, you instead hit back and you go find something else. Day 10. So this is where I have a movie that is, well, it's dark. The last time I tried to watch Phantasm 2, it's a very depressing movie. Phantasm 2 doesn't have many moments that you could look at as being funny, or there's not a lot of levity in there. It's very heavy. There are moments, but it is a very heavy movie. So if you're not of the mind to watch that, and if you want to watch some cheesy 80s chase scenes, I would recommend The Wraith with Charlie Sheen. And it is cheesy, over the top, and great. And it is violent. I believe The Wraith, though, was PG-13. So there's some violence in there. It's about a ghost that comes back for revenge, and he gets revenge by racing them to death. And it's just as good as it sounds. It's one of those movies that I absolutely loved. I've loved for a long time, and I always thought Wraith was a great name for a wrestler. I may or may not have created a wrestler with that name at one point in my life, but it is a pretty solid movie. And again, it's Charlie Sheen, so you know what you're going to get with Charlie Sheen. And it's the 80s, so you know kind of which Charlie Sheen you're going to get. Day 11. I thought, why not lighten it up a little bit again? And it doesn't really matter which order this movie comes in. So Return of the Living Dead is from 1986. And it doesn't take itself seriously for 2 minutes. It just doesn't. And it is not for kids. It's funny and it's lighthearted, but it's not really for kids. And I remember when I was a lot younger, I thought, it doesn't really matter. Kids can watch this. And then I watched it, with a kid that was younger than me. I was a teenager at the time, and I was like, actually, this is a lot more grim than I thought it was, because I found it funny. But I thought, for a kid, this is pretty intense. If you want to watch the sequel right after, I'm one of the few that likes Return of the Living Dead Part 2. I also think Part 3 is fantastic, but that's because I like the mindless zombie knockoffs. And it's interesting because the writer and the producer that had Living Dead here is the reason why Night of the Living Dead becomes Dawn of the Dead, because he had Living Dead as the title that he was allowed to use. George Romero was not. That's why it's not Dawn of the Living Dead, Day of the Living Dead. It's just Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and Land of the Dead. And now you know. Day 12. Day 12, we're going to go with another... This one's dark. And it's funny, because I debated about whether or not I'd put Hellraiser on the list. And then I thought, no, Hellraiser should be on the list, because as dark as it is, it belongs on the list. It absolutely does. It's a solid movie. But if it's too dark for your liking, then I'm going to put in a movie that's both Christmas and Halloween, and that's Gremlins. Gremlins is both. It's Christmas and Halloween. I'm sorry. It's little green monsters running around terrorizing the city. It's not purely a Christmas movie. Christmas is in it, but it definitely qualifies as a Halloween movie as well. Day 13. Well, it's day 13, so what else am I going to put in here? But a Friday the 13th movie, and it's part 3. Friday the 13th part 3. That's the 3D one. If you can get it in 3D with the glasses, enjoy the headache. Absolutely enjoy the headache. It's better with the headache. The headache actually probably improves the feeling that you get watching that. For day 14, another 80s movie here. There's a lot of 80s in this. Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2, I'm not going to give you an option outside of Evil Dead 2 because even though Evil Dead 2 is violent and it's gory, unlike the original Evil Dead in 1981, Evil Dead 2 is funny, it's irreverent, and it's that bridge between the original Evil Dead and then what Army of Darkness would be. And Army of Darkness is almost all farce and jokes, and it's not really, really scary. And Evil Dead 2 sort of leads you down the path to that. So, yeah, there's some body dismemberment and stuff that goes on, but not like in the original. The original, it's way over the top. This one, it's not nearly as bad. Day 15... we're going back to Friday the 13th. I thought, you know what? I should have these movies close together because they're right after each other. So part 3, Jason has an axe to the head. He's dead, but then he isn't. And he gets up and he gets out of the hospital, and on that same night he goes out and it all starts all over again. So you watch part 3, you take a break with Evil Dead 2, and then you come back and watch part 4 on the 15th. And then that's it for Friday the 13th movies on their own, where it's a Jason standalone. Again, I don't have the remake on the list. I didn't find a place where I could put the remake. You could try to watch 5 or 6. 6 is much better than 5. 5 was made by an adult movie director, and you can tell it's really uncomfortable. Part 6 is pretty good, and the Alice Cooper songs fit right in. Part 7 is fun if you want to see Jason versus Carrie. And part 8, let's not talk about Jason in New York when it's Vancouver. Day 16... is Dawn of the Dead from 1978. And if you don't feel like watching a movie that's still rated X, I think, in certain parts of the world, or NC-17 at the very least, or just unrated, places where it's just, you just can't get a rating, so you just forget it. If you don't want to watch that, then might I recommend, which I believe is PG-13, The Ring. The Ring is a good movie, and I know it gets overdone, and I know, again, it got overexposed, and the twist, once the twist was known, gets kind of overdone, and it is hard to rewatch once you know the twist. And then you get into some logical inconsistencies in the movie, but you know what? Just, it's fine. It's all fine. It's fine. The Ring's fine. I still enjoy it. Day 17. They Live. And based on what's going on in the world right now, when I see people using phrases from They Live on signs and they mean them seriously, I kind of die inside, because the movie's sort of meant to be like just fun. But again, I recommend the movie because Roddy Piper, he's here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and he's all out of bubblegum. So guess what's going to happen? That's right. Day 18, another funny movie, zombie movie as well, and that's Fido. So Evil Dead is not a zombie movie. Remember, these are people that are possessed. They're not technically dead. The Evil Dead part is the dead possessing them. Fido is a zombie movie, but it's funny because it's like a 1950s redone idea of what if we domesticated the zombies, and then they're under control, but then they're not, and they eat people, and what do we do to clean it up? Like, there's some funny moments in it, and it's a movie that Yvonne and I reviewed on this channel. She actually really enjoyed it. She's let the kids watch it. They got a kick out of it. Day 19, back to the zombies again, of the not so fun variety, because I think the 2004 version of Dawn of the Dead is excellent. I just have They Live and Fido in the middle, so you can kind of have fun and relax, and then we go to 2004. But if you're like, I don't really want to watch that, because again, you know, that's kind of grim, isn't it? Fine. And you get to watch another Halloween, or is it Christmas movie, Nightmare Before Christmas. So yeah, there you go. Day 19. Day 20. I go back to the comedy well. Happy Death Day. And again, if you want to do back-to-back, you could do Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You. Both of those movies are excellent, and it is a shame that the second movie didn't make enough money to warrant the third movie being made, because they set up the third movie and it would have been excellent, but they just don't quite set it up. I have the original, not the second one in the list, because the second one's more of a sci-fi Back to the Future kind of idea rather than the horror movie that the first one is, although again it's got its irreverent moments and its funny parts. For 21, I recommend Creepshow 2, or as I used to call it, Thanks for the Ride, Lady. And Creepshow 1, absolutely, you want to watch them back-to-back, no problem. For me, I enjoy Creepshow 2 more, and I know that's sacrilege amongst most horror fans, so I apologize, but I don't at the same time, because Creepshow 2 is a lot of fun. 22 is a movie that I consider to be a Halloween movie, or a Christmas movie, I should say, which is The Shining. But The Shining, good, scary movie, very, very well done. But if you don't feel like watching that because it's too long, because it's not too gory, and you're like, that's too long, then fine. Why don't you go and watch Army of Darkness instead, where Ash goes off and fights Deadites in the medieval times and just has fun with it. And you could tell they had tons of fun making that movie. And then that way you will have watched Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness in a 3-week period, and your life will be complete. That's how that works. Now, on day 23, if you watch Army of Darkness, there's no better time then to throw in. I do have erasers, but I'm just used to erasing it with my finger. The Evil Dead, you can call it a reboot, you can call it a remake, you can call it whatever you want. I consider it to be a sequel. I consider it to be part of that same universe, where the book ends up in the cabin, and this is the 2013 revamped idea of Evil Dead. I love this movie. I have loved this movie for a long time. When I started dating my wife, I kind of insisted she watch it, even though she doesn't like horror movies, because I said, this is really, really well made. And now that I know her better, I'm a horrible person. It was a horrible decision, and I really wish I hadn't done it. And then after you're done watching this, then you can go watch the Ash vs. Evil Dead series and really enjoy it. Because if you enjoy all of that, you'll enjoy that series. Day 24 is a week before Halloween. So I figure that's a good time to watch the 1977 Halloween movie starring Jamie Lee Curtis. Great movie. Absolutely. It's one of those perfect horror movies. Not only that, but you watch that movie now, there's very, very little gore in it. There's very, very little that actually happens in it that's over the top to make it rated R. I think if you made that now, it'd be PG-13. I don't think you'd have to change anything. But yeah, the 1977 version is great. Number 25, one of the best claustrophobic horror movies ever. I believe it was released in 1982, and that's The Thing. Kurt Russell, one of the best. And what's great about it is it ends on this uncertain note. So if you haven't seen it, there's a lot of uncertainty in the ending. It is wide open, and John Carpenter made it that way on purpose. So that's 2 John Carpenter movies in 2 nights. You're welcome. John Carpenter has made some good movies in his lifetime, and those are 2 of them. And the fact that The Thing ends on this kind of ambiguous ending, because it can't end with a happy ending. It's a horror movie. It just can't. And so they do it kind of perfect there. Day 26, another movie from the 80s. Shannon's so old. Shannon likes all these old movies. Darn straight. And The Lost Boys is one of the greatest. Because I'm like, there has to be a vampire movie. I'm putting Lost Boys on here. And none of the other ones are vampire movies. I don't have vampire movies on here. And I'm not sure why that is. And again, you know, if I'd gone through my DVD collection and if I went through all the lists all over the internet, because I thought about it, I thought, no cheating. Lost Boys is the one that stands out to me. And there are other good horror movies. The Bram Stoker's Dracula is okay. I thought it was overdone. I never liked Interview with the Vampire. Not at all. I really didn't. Very unlikable characters all throughout. I didn't care if anybody died, and that's a problem when you don't care that everybody dies. You don't care. But The Lost Boys is excellent. Day 27. So this is more recent compared to a lot of the other stuff on the list, and yet Freddy vs. Jason was a culmination of a movie we wanted in the 80s. Who would win a fight between Freddy and Jason? And sadly, because it's a horror movie and they're unkillable, the answer is neither. but it's fun getting there. It's fun getting there and realizing nobody can actually win. It's not allowed. You can't actually have a winner. I know they wanted to have Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, and Bruce Campbell said, well, which one do I get to kill? And when they said neither, he's like, so what's the point? And he's right. He's absolutely right. That if Ash is just there just to have, you know, sword fights and stuff like that with Freddy and Jason and get the chainsaw out, but he can't really do anything, what's the point? So he was right. Day 28. Scream. Wes Craven with Scream absolutely knocked it right out of the park. I saw that one in the theater twice. Really, really enjoyed it. It's rare that I see a horror movie in the theater twice. I saw Evil Dead in the theater, I think 3 times. The 2013 one, I saw it 3 times in the theater. Happy Death Day I saw in the theater. Also, I don't think I saw the second one in the theater. I know I saw the first one in the theater. I'm not sure. Theaters have kind of become a non-thing, so it's been so long since I was in the theater. It's like it's this distant past before 2020. 2020 is just 1 year, right? Day 29, one of the classics, which predates me in terms of my interest in movies. The first time I tried to watch The Exorcist, I could only watch 3 minutes of it at a time. I had to change channel. It was on TV. I could only watch 3 minutes of it at a time. But what's funny is that I only saw TV versions. So for years, I thought it was Father Karras, your grandmother sews socks in hell. Yes, I did. What did he actually say? Oh, it doesn't matter. Whatever the demon actually said is not important. But I thought it was sew socks in hell. And I thought that was fine. I actually found that really creepy because this was something that, you know, Father Karras had talked about with his grandmother, and I didn't find it. Anyways, and then I saw the R-rated version, like, oh, that's quite different. So day 30. Now this might be considered backtracking, because you'll notice I try to make sure I'm not backtracking. Wes Craven's New Nightmare is not technically backtracking. Wes Craven's New Nightmare is about the idea that Freddy is killed off in the movies, and the demon that had possessed Freddy and been Freddy wants to come into the real world because he needs stories to be told so he can be sedated and all that stuff. And so I don't see any reason why you can't watch that after Freddy versus Jason, since it's technically detached from the rest of the series. Right? So it works. And on day 31, what would I recommend? Well, it's Halloween. So, the 2018 Halloween, which is the sequel to the 1977. Now, you could try to have the 1977 Halloween here, which would be fine too, but then you'd have to have another movie on the 24th, and then, yeah, and then your 31 days of Halloween would be the same as mine. So my challenge to you, your 31 days of Halloween. Let me know in the comments section below which 31 movies you would have if you could have a movie of the day for Halloween, for October, to celebrate Halloween month. And there you go. 31 movies. Let me know your thoughts regarding my list in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.